After 200 episodes, Sean O'Shaughnessey and Kevin Lawson have seen enough sales trends come and go to know which principles still matter. In this special live audience episode of Two Tall Guys Talking Sales, they examine how AI can create more selling time, why a sharply defined ideal client profile can transform prospecting and pipeline quality, and why authentic relationships still matter more than ever. You'll also hear practical advice on hiring salespeople, coaching teams, structuring compensation, and building trust across complex B2B buying committees. If you want to know what actually drives sales success after the technology, tactics, and buzzwords are stripped away, keep listening. If you would like to watch the video version of this podcast, go to the YouTube link in the show notes.
Welcome to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. This is Sean O'Shaughnessey, and this is the first time we've been doing this. That's been 200 episodes as of today, and I'm actually in the same room with you, Kevin. This is amazing. Tell us why.
Well, I don't think we should go there yet because, 200 times we've done this, and this is the first time we're here, and we've got an audience.
We have an audience.
Yeah. Yes, see them out there in the audience. It's no longer just in listener land. There we go. No longer just listener land. It's audio and video.
It's awesome.
But I think it's probably really important for us to, instead of talking about the 200th episode, we should probably talk about the first few we did.
Oh.
The first few we did, we got into this, and we wanted to remind ourselves of really why it is we do this. And I think that everyone should know that we do this not because of some ego thing we want to do. We both had really good mentors the entirety of our lives, careers. I think back to all the sports coaches and folks that were in my life and speaking into my life to help me get to where I am today. And it's really a testament to their coaching ability is what has made us want to do this today. So cheers to you, man. 200 episodes. Good stuff.
Thank you. You know what? It's been fun. It really has been a fun job. So when we started this, first of all, don't go back and listen to that first episode.
Please don't.
Or first two or three, because they were really bad on sound. I was the sound engineer, and it didn't work very well. I should be fired from that job, and I just got better, thankfully. But we started this by saying there's just a ton of things that we can help people, and we aren't able to do that face-to-face and with our clients. And we're officially competitors. A lot of people don't understand that, but we're officially competitors. Yeah. We both have our own individual practices that we go and help our customers. Mm-hmm. But we kind of liked each other. We kind of had a lot to bond with. And we said, let's do some seminars together. And then seminars became a podcast.
Yeah. And not to overlook that we did this in early and mid-COVID. That's when we started. I mean, everybody was digital and remote, and we really were trying to connect. And those 1 hour long LinkedIn seminars, that's a lot of fun. And I think my biggest learning from that experience specifically was that it's really easy when somebody else is running the soundboard. Yes. And it's really easy as a presenter if somebody else is running the soundboard.
Exactly. So today we're lucky, right? Because we're at the Cincinnati Podcast Studio. So for those people that are out in listener land, not in our audience, we typically record from our individual offices, but today we went to Cincinnati Podcast Studio, which is we're living in Cincinnati. And the guys here at Cincinnati Podcast Studio were great. And we've got great stuff here, great setup, great cameras. So we could never pull this off without them.
No, they definitely have raised the bar for us.
Absolutely.
So, but Sean, I'm curious, what was your biggest learning early when we were sub 10, 15 episodes? What was your biggest learning about educating people digitally?
So digitally it was hard to get feedback, right? So we had to trust that we were going to get feedback. And usually when I'm coaching with a salesperson or a sales team, I don't have any problem with did they get it? Did they understand it? I feel like I can explain something and I can look at you and you're understanding it, but you're not my audience when I'm doing it on the podcast. So I think I struggle more just on the feedback, which is great while having an audience is going to be great. But that's probably the hardest thing about doing a podcast and trying to teach somebody how to do sales just a little bit better.
Fantastic. And I'd like to say that is still a challenge because we're still just talking to a microphone, hoping that it resonates with somebody. What's your biggest what's your biggest takeaway as hey, you've helped somebody as a part of this coaching? What's you really hanging your hat on?
So the thing that I've learned in our 200 episodes, which is roughly 4 years we've been doing this now, which is kind of amazing because we do it every week, Tuesday, 4:30, Zone Drops. Probably the biggest challenge that I've seen is in my big company experience, which is, as you know, has been the majority of my experience as a salesperson and a sales manager. It's harder to prospect. It's harder to find customers. It's harder to make your statement to the world when you're in a smaller company. And a lot of the people that listen to our podcast are in smaller companies, and they come to us because they're trying to figure out, I'm in a group of 3 or 4 or 5 people. I'm not getting a lot of feedback and coaching from the other people in my group and my team. I need to find somebody outside. So they find us one way or another on the podcast episodes. But the challenge that they typically have is, I don't know how to get my word out. I don't know how to find customers. And it's harder when you're in a smaller company than it is in a larger company that has hundreds or thousands of salespeople already hitting the road. So it's easier to get your message out and make that well known. What about you? What have you learned about what we've done?
Initially, I think the learning was that we have a lot of experience that I, in terms of stories, just hadn't really drawn on a lot because I was so, as a W-2 employee, I was so focused on what the team needed in that moment, just that small team. It was very, very thin slices of my experience. But now being able to step back from that and say, you know what, there's a lot of common problems across all sales organizations, things like ideal client profile, persona, messaging alignment, prospecting in more than one medium. These are the structural things that I thought everybody kind of knew. They're really not available in a lot of companies across, no matter what size your business is. So I think our greatest value has become helping people understand how to connect a lot of those dots. And it's probably been one of the most affirming things for somebody to go, I listened to that and I really got something out of the messaging, or, oh, you're the other tall guy, beyond that. But really being able to connect with people in a way that I didn't know I was helping them until they told me I was helping them. So that's probably been my biggest takeaway and probably my biggest affirmation that we're doing good things for the market.
I agree. And I feel like I'm constantly having to ask salespeople that I just meet, what is your ICP? And they go, what's that? In fact, I probably should say what those letters mean. Ideal client profile. So on a regular basis, we ask that question. I ask that question. I know you do as well. And they don't have it very well pinned down, or they give me a 500-word response. That's ICP, that should be like 1 or 2 sentences, right? It shouldn't be very long. But it should be very, very direct. And this is what I do. This is the problem I solve, and this is how I do it. Yep. And most salespeople still struggle with that. Therefore, it tells me the most sales managers aren't relaying it. Most corporate owners, company owners aren't figuring that out as well. And so I still think that's probably the thing that I start with on most of my clients when I talk to them. Most of the people that talk to me about, hey, I heard you guys on Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. And I go, within a couple of minutes, I'm asking, well, what's your ICP? And they go, I don't know.
The shrug shoulders. The other version of that we hear a lot, or I hear a lot at least, is, yeah, and they tell me that 500-word monologue. And I say, where do you have that written down? And the absence of documentation, I just thought that it was assumed that you should write it down. Kind of like your mission, vision, values. You should write that stuff down. And when you codify or get that in a distributable format, it becomes real because you can connect it to your marketing. You can connect it to your customer service, your product delivery, and all the different parts of your business. And if there was one thing I would want people to take away after these 200 episodes is really pay attention to the documentation. If you don't have a repeatable sales process,
you don't have a repeatable sales process.
I love it. See, I've influenced you. I love it. I love it.
In case you haven't heard us before, that is probably Kevin's most famous saying. He probably says it once every 3 or 4 episodes, maybe every 5. But that's one of those Kevinisms that I look forward to hearing about. Okay. And then occasionally we get that North Carolina thing going from you. And
we don't need to go too far down that road. It'll be a train wreck if we do. We're live here.
Yeah, we're live. Exactly.
So one of the questions I get a lot is, why 15 minutes?
We chose 15 minutes. Actually, that was your idea because you had this idea of, I want to have a podcast that we can drop at 4:30 in the afternoon so that when the salesperson is done with their sales calls for the day, maybe they swung by the office, maybe they didn't, but now they're going home. And Now they can listen to us 15 minutes. It's a typical commute in most cities. Some cities, obviously, they're a lot longer of a commute, but you can listen to it on the way to work. You can listen to it on the way home from work, but we drop it at 4:30. So hopefully that they're listening to it on the way home and they're going, oh, I should have tried that in that sales call I just got done with, or that sales call that I did last week. And also they can say, gee, I'm going to try that now next time. And I'm going to try that tomorrow. So the 15 minutes was short and sweet. Salespeople are in a hurry. We're in a rush. We don't want to spend an hour and a half on sales theory. Like, just give me the nugget, right? Just tell me what I have to do.
Yeah.
And salespeople are good for that.
Yeah, don't make me do the algebra. I want to know the shortcuts, not the longhand version.
Exactly right.
So I think it might be interesting to go back and kind of share with our audience here about how we approached the content. Because remember back those first, it was the first probably 100 episodes we did. We were very disciplined on creating, here's the topics, here's the next step, here's how the topics flow and connect together. And I think our first 15 episodes were really just describing the sales process and all the components of a good sales organization, everything from CRMs to ICPs and personas to messaging, all the way down to comp plans and meeting structure, right? But I think if we were to think back, what was probably one of your favorite topics? Because I know we've repeated topics a few times now, but what was one of your favorite topics we covered?
You really need me to answer this?
I do.
Okay, MedPick.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's my Seanism, right? So MedPick is a way of qualifying a deal, right? Making sure that the deal is worth going after. So many of our customers, so many of our clients, so many people that we know, they spend time on a deal that doesn't close. And if you're a salesperson, that kills you, right? If you have too many deals that don't close, not that you lost to a competitor, they did not close. The customer didn't make a decision. Those deals are painful when you're trying to make an income off of sales. And I assume that most salespeople are on some level of commission or bonus or whatever. And going after deals that just don't go anywhere, like, don't do that. It hurts way too much. So MedPick is my way around that problem, that if you can answer the MedPick questions, and there's 9 questions, so you'd think that'd be easy, but it's not. That whenever we talk about MedPick, I kind of get jazzed about it because I know that I'm helping them figure out, don't waste your time.
Yep. And MedPick is kind of like golf. You can understand it in a very short amount of time, but it takes a lifetime to master.
Absolutely. I still catch myself when I'm meeting with a potential client screwing up and not getting all the 9 letters taken care of.
So there's your permission marketing. It's okay to make a mistake, right? There's more to life than trying to be perfect, because perfection is wearing. Perfection is the enemy of progress, right?
And what about you? What was your favorite thing that you when we've talked about it?
Hands down, it's a litany of things. It's a few things. We have a lot of guests. We've had great guests, and I have learned just by asking the questions. So we did this series for the first couple of years on buffaloes, and there's a buffalo status, 5 years in practice really is what it amounts to, and learning from those people who have been sales leaders, who've been sellers, and who have really been focused on building the craft over time, where they've gotten through the wall of, is this going to work out or not? Right? Is this thing going to work in their business? But that 5-year mark, there's something about that gives wisdom and allows wisdom to be shared, because you've got so much experience at that point that you can say, from a place of experience, not from a place of theory, know what to say next. Yeah,
we've had some really good guests. We've had a couple guests on several times, people like Tom Deli and Kelly Crandall and Steve Caton, who is our 4-time guest winner, right? So he was on for 4 different episodes. And Steve is just like us, kind of. He could have been one of us if he wanted to. Instead, he started a different type of company to offer sales services. So Steve's been a great guest for us too. But we've had some just amazing ones. And we just had one right before we recorded this episode, that he was in Holland. So we have an international audience. We have people from Holland listening to us. We have people from Australia that have been on our podcast before. So we know that we have people all over the world that listen to 2 tall guys talking sales.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the thing I want to make sure we cover here is that we've got a studio audience here.
That's right.
And I want to engage them, because I can't talk good enough about these people because they are wonderful humans first, wonderful practitioners, but they always challenge us, and I'm up for the challenge. You up for the challenge?
I'm up for the challenge. Right. So what we're going to do, just for all those people that are not that aren't in our studio audience, we're actually going to ask them to ask us questions, and we're going to try to answer them. We'll see who has the better answer, I guess. I don't know. But
it's competition now. I like it.
So I think we have our first person up there that's going to ask a question. So if you could introduce yourself, please, and then ask your question, that'd be great.
Gladly. Mark Clower with Focus CFO. Congratulations on number 200. It's been a great journey and hopefully one that continues. My question is going to be kind of a softball for you to start off with the first one. So over these 200 episodes you've had, what are the trends, the biggest trend or the biggest change you've seen over the 200, excluding AI?
That's a good one. That's a real good
I was going to go right to AI, and then you killed me on it. Go ahead.
That was too easy. Come on, guys.
Clower is coming in for the dunk here. Okay, he's dunking on top of us. I think for me, it's really a most recently and pushing back in the timeline about a year. I think that the biggest change has been a move back towards in-person relationships. Remember, we started this during COVID, so we saw a lot of attention being paid to how are we going to digitally connect with people so that we can have sales calls again. Now it's a push back towards, not mentioning AI here, now it's a push back towards authentic, real relationships based on value, not only the value creation, but the value realization. Because there's so much noise out there. There's so much noise that authentic relationships really matter. They haven't mattered less. They just matter more now because I think there's a resurgence of that as a push towards selling differently in a digitally enabled and AI-enabled environment.
Yeah, I think I'm going to build on that same topic because I think that's real. So 4 years ago, actually right before then, of course, as well, it was all about how do you reach out to people electronically? How do you do email communication? How do you get on LinkedIn, all the rest? So LinkedIn has definitely changed in those last 4 years, which has made it harder to use LinkedIn as a social media aspect for prospecting. But also salespeople now have the ability to do more face-to-face things, and they spend more time actually just going out and making sales calls. And in fact, when somebody says that they can't reach a prospect anymore, when they say, I'm getting ghosted, then I typically say, can you go knock on their door? I mean, literally just go show up. Or maybe you drop something into, and this is going to scare a lot of people, you drop something into the U.S. Postal Service, the post office, and send an outreach to them that way. Or FedEx is another great way, right? So right now, most of our prospective customers, our prospects, are inundated with electronic communication to them, right? Lots of emails, lots of social media outreach, lots of text messages. I get those all the time. I get spam text. Do you want to buy this or can I sell you that? So you got to do something different, and different is now old. And I've got lots of gray hair, which now everybody can see and tell that I have lots of gray hair. I say it all the time on the podcast, but dropping something in the mail makes a lot of sense, right? Because you don't get a lot of letters that aren't junk mail. So if you send them a letter and send them a note, that really does work.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Appreciate it. We're wide open to others.
Hey, this is James Sayre with Era Group. How tall do you got to be a tall guy talking sales? No, just kidding. So I'm gonna ask this because I know Sean's aching to anyway, right? And so Mark negated AI. I'm instead going to go the other way and saying that AI has changed so many things. What do you think are maybe the one or two most important things for salespeople to know right now when it comes to AI and using AI with your profession?
So I'm going to go at it from a productivity standpoint. So most studies that are on the market will tell you that salespeople make about 25% to 40% of their time making sales calls, which means 75%, 60% of the time they're not making sales calls. that is a massive productivity killer. And I said earlier about how, going after a dead deal is a productivity killer, but just day to day, all of the research we have to do, all of the stuff we have to do our jobs, work on that stupid CRM, all those things that just are part of our lives as salespeople, they suck up a lot of time. So if we can use AI, if we can use any tool to work faster, to work more efficiently, to get just one more sales call per week, and even better if you can get one more sales call a day. That's a massive increase in your productivity and a massive increase in your ability to sell. And there's one thing that we all can agree on in sales. The more sales calls you make, the more you will make. The more money you will make, the more deals you're going to close, assuming you do them well and you use MedPick to qualify them and all the rest. So making one more sales call means you potentially can increase your revenue, your personal revenue, 10%, 15%. If you can make one more sales call a day, you might be able to increase your revenue by a third, which is just an amazing number, right? So we need to use AI. We need to use all tools and get very, very good at them, not as time sinks, but actually as ways to not do work. And lazy salespeople are very effective salespeople. We want people to not work hard, just make lots of sales calls.
Yeah, and for the one or two things I would do, like, what am I going to do before lunch tomorrow? Kind of approach to AI is really finding your most intensive research effort, whether that's finding the phone number, finding the email, reading the 10K report, whatever the thing is that's taking up the most of your research time in the prospecting moment. Find a way to automate that. There's everything from creating custom GPTs to projects to gyms. I mean, all the way down the line. AI can fundamentally and foundationally change your time management. So back to productivity, but also to tactically say, prospecting is tough. Selling is tough. Customer retention is tough. And if you'll think about those three buckets, prospecting, selling, customer retention, if you'll think about those three buckets and inside of each one of those buckets, find the one thing that's taking up the most time, look to automate that. And sometimes it doesn't have to be AI. It doesn't always have to be AI. It can be workflows. It can be trigger events. What is the thing that you can get off of your plate from a time management perspective that allows you to move faster through your day? What's the presidential approach to this is they only have black suits or blue suits and white shirts and red ties kind of thing. They do that so you have to make fewer decisions. Like you just walk, there you go. Great example. Blue and white all the way. So the idea of what can AI do or what is the AI foundational shift, it's really, for me, is around research management. Because I can spend a lot of time getting paralyzed on just finding the next useful piece of information.
And James, if you don't mind, I want to take it to my number one suggestion that everybody in sales should do. So I've said this over and over again, and that is your ability to communicate is key as a salesperson. It's the number one thing. So being able to be understood when you write is very, very important. And AI can help you do that. And I insist that all salespeople get a subscription to Grammarly, because there's nothing worse than looking at something that's poorly written and say, I have no idea what you're trying to say. You have 14 letters in there that don't make sense. You are talking in circles. I don't know where your commas are supposed to be. They are in weird spaces. Those things go away as soon as you use Grammarly. It's really cheap. It's free for a certain level of capability. And I just tell all salespeople, look, communication is key. Use Grammarly.
And by the way, I do at your suggestion. So I took your advice at a Beers and Biz years ago to do it, and I have done it, and has served me well.
Very good. Thank you very much for that. That's awesome. And I'll tell anybody, Grammarly is fantastic.
Two Tall Guys, sponsored by Grammarly.
and I've never contacted them. They are not my sponsor. I'm just been a user for 3.5 million words or something like that. I think we have another guest, another question.
Also, my congratulations on your 200th episode, guys. Great job.
Thank you very much.
I seem to come across a lot of young professionals, first job out of college, often getting into a sales-related job, what advice might you give them, part one, and then part two, what might be a gift of encouragement that I could give them, maybe a book or whatever you might recommend there?
That's a good one. First of all, that's a great question. You have a superpower of asking good questions. I would say for that young seller, probably the gift I would give them is probably a book. Number one, I love to give away books because I like the physical transfer of a book. Specifically, I like Challenger Sale. I like Traction because it's a good overall view of a business management perspectives. So one of those two, or maybe even Atomic Habits. One of those three books would be a good give if they're specifically in the sales production. I'm imagining an early career person that's never had a sales job. They've had it only in theory, maybe in a class, maybe in a marketing and sales class. I would say that I want them to stop trying so hard. I want them to slow down and say, look, if you'll just think about these accounts, get organized for what you think they need, not what you want to sell. It's not about your product. Stop selling the drill bit, sell the hole or the thing that goes through the hole. Let's just take this as a thinking exercise. Sales is so fraught with the noise of selling. Buy my product, do this, do that. Prescriptively trying to get somebody to buy whatever it is they're selling. We as sellers need to stop and figure out what problem we're solving. I had back to the mentors thing for a minute. Had a mentor. He was a former EY guy, and he would say, "Don't sell the product you have. Sell the problem you solve." So if we can get people thinking about solving problems, reaching goals, we can make a real big difference in their careers. I'm looking around the room here, yourself included. There's a lot of problem solvers in the room, and that's why you're successful, because we solve problems. We don't sell stuff.
And I'm going to kind of build on that. So I believe that most salespeople should work on their curiosity. Be curious about everything around you. Be curious about your company that you work for, the product that you sell. Like, how did that product come about? If it's a technical product, who created it? How did it get created? Who's developing it? All that stuff of what problem was it originally designed to solve back when the founder maybe thought of the product or thought of the company. And then when you're talking to your prospect, how curious can you be about their business? How curious can you be about how they operate, how they make money, how they lose money? One of the challenges I give to salespeople all the time is, you've got this great deal that you're going to go after at this company. Have you actually asked them how do they lose money at their company? It's easy to figure out how people make money because it's what they sell or whatever, but how do you lose money? And if you run into a really big deal, you're probably going to be in front of a CFO, or your champion, the person at your customer, is going to be in front of a CFO defending it. CFOs worry about, how do we lose money? I think there's a couple CFOs in the room with you. And every time I talk about, what's your job? Your job is to not make them lose money. Make sure the company doesn't lose money. So when you're standing in front of a CFO, say, I have an ROI of this, and we're going to do this, and it's going to be great, and we're going to turn around your company. And what the CFO really wants to hear is, how are you going to make sure that I don't lose money next month? That's more important than how you're going to help him make money. He's not really paid to make money. He's paid to make sure you don't lose money. So be curious about how the business works. If it comes to a book, I'm going to say go after the two granddaddies of the industry. So I think every salesperson should read Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's a fantastic book. It's probably like 100 years old, but it doesn't get much better than that as far as interpersonal skills. And then the book that came out in roughly 1984, 85, Strategic Selling by Miller Hyman, fantastic book. I actually say that most of the stuff that you read in every book since then has been just a variation or a pushing one concept that was talked about in Strategic Selling. It's a fantastic book. And go try to find the old one. Go to the used bookstore, get the old one, the original one that they wrote, not the one that was rewritten and rewritten and rewritten. So get the original one. It's even better.
Thank you. Great suggestions.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you
Good
very much.
question.
Hello, guys. Tom Gottlieb with Berkshire Hathaway. I think you two have seen me a few times around.
Thank you for coming, Tom.
Hey, how's it going? So I have a question back to your point about relationships, that it seems to be coming back. It's funny you brought that up because I just had a relationship with an intern that I just hired permanently in our organization, and young people don't know how to have relationships. So how do you suggest in this world of AI that people don't start siding too much with AI, and they find ways, I'll say, of developing better relationships with people?
So I'm going to answer that kind of as a build up on my last answer, and that is be curious. So I actually do this when I teach people how to do networking. And I talk about how to do effective networking. And one of the challenges I say is try to go for 5 minutes without talking about yourself. So as salespeople, we really like to talk about ourselves. We like to talk about our company, our product. This is what we did for the company down the street, whatever the case may be, right? But being curious about what's going on with the other person is actually more important. And you do that by just plain shutting up and ask a question, ask an open-ended question, and then let the customer talk, let the prospect talk. The more they talk, the more information they give, the better you're going to do, because you're going to figure out, oh, that's the problem you're trying to solve, or that's the root of the problem that you're trying to solve. Great example that I just came up to me with one of my clients in the last couple of weeks, and that was we were talking to IT people, and and everybody thought this was an IT-led problem. And so I started asking the questions, so they invited me on some sales calls with them. I started asking questions about, why is that important? Who's going to actually look at this? Who's going to try to do it? We quickly found out that all of the people that were going to take advantage of what we were selling were salespeople. And that was good for me because I know salespeople. But I also know that probably meant that it was a sales productivity problem, and the VP of sales was probably the most important person, and he wasn't even in the room. He was never on a single sales call. So I challenged my salesperson, go talk to the VP of sales. It'll be the easiest sales call you ever made in your life because we're easy to make sales calls on. But go talk to the VP of sales. He did, found out much more about who's really making the decision, how it's going to get funded, why it's going to happen. And the VP of sales basically said, no, I'm never going to be in any of your meetings, but they're going to do this because I said they have to, because I need my productivity and my salespeople to go up. I need better information. And we found out what the true driving factor of the opportunity was. And it wasn't about how many gigabytes of storage that were going to be in this one thing. It had nothing to do with that.
Yeah. It's interesting for me. I kind of take a different approach, and I tend to coach people on how they show up. So Tom, to your question about how to help salespeople early career build those relationships, I tend to say, let's stop talking about selling and networking right now. Let's just think about how you show up and how you want to be remembered. How do you show up to an event is as important as what you want to get out of it. Like, do you have that moment where you ask the salesperson, the new relationship, hey, let's just take a breath here. Let's stop and think about why you're going to this event, who's going to be there, what do you think their reason is for attending, and what do you think might be 4 or 5 topics you could talk about? I mean, just 4 or 5 topical, pre-planned messages or topics will disarm and make somebody much more comfortable. Here's a little bit of visibility behind the curtain here for us. We showed up today kind of knowing what we were going to talk about. This would be a whole lot more difficult if we just showed up and winged it.
You're absolutely right.
So we kind of give ourselves the same coaching that we would give a new seller, a young early career salesperson, or even anybody just entering the workforce, is take a moment before you just put on your shoes and run out the door. Take a breath, take the 8 to 80 seconds and plan the 5 things that need to happen today. That's called prioritization for you sellers out there in listener land that aren't watching this. Prioritize your day and then focus on those things. It's easy to say no thank you to a request if you know you've got something higher priority. So for all sellers, that builds relationship and community. And that's how we get them there, is to think about what must be true for today to be a success. And that pre-planning is a big part of it. Great question, Tom.
Excellent. Thanks.
This has been fun.
Yeah.
We should do this more often.
We know a lot of smart people.
Hey guys,
Hey, Dave.
Dave Moravec here. Great, congratulations. The only thing that would have been better is if it was 250th on the 250th, but you'll get there eventually. Hey, my question really relates to business owners that are trying to hire salespeople. I hear time and time again that I don't know if I want to hire somebody from my industry that has sales background. They get into the interview process, they get ghosted. Can you talk about the hiring of salespeople today and maybe some advice for business owners that are challenged with that?
Wow. That's an every business owner. It's rare that I go into any meeting and we don't talk about some sort of talent acquisition or talent management, talent, finding it, keeping it, retaining it, teaching it, the whole 9 yards. I think it's really critical for every owner that we all interact with to know that you need to hire somebody into a system. You don't hire somebody's Rolodex. And that's one of those nuggets that I hope everybody takes away is that please stop hiring based on pedigree or Rolodex. And instead, make sure your systems are well appointed enough to where you can say, here's your 90-day plan. In the first 90 days, in the first 30 days, in the first week, here's the things we're going to accomplish. Here's our knowledge checks along the way. Here's the documentation of my system, your system, our system. Here's the what you're opting into. So even during the interview process, which also, by the way, should be documented, pause for effect. Your processes should all be documented, not just in the accounting department. Like there's a reason GAAP accounting exists, right? It's a standardized process that everyone can follow. I'm seeing some head nods in the back, which is awesome, making sure my statement's not wrong. But the same should exist for sales. The same should exist for talent management, onboarding, and offboarding. When do you know somebody's not a right fit? You want to help them seek success elsewhere, right? And you should know that your systems that you've put in place are repeatable in the same way that I say if you don't have a sales process, you don't have a sales process. If you don't have a hiring process, you don't have a hiring process. You've got a surefire way to get somebody into your version of a crazy train and then right back off. So when I'm talking to owners, operators, and also controllers, controller CFOs who know what the cost of a bad hire is, that's a really, really important conversation to know, hey, if we got to hire this person the really inexpensive way, let's do it 3 times for one position.
There you go. So I like to talk about the fact, and you kind of alluded to this a little bit, Dave, in your question, but I like to say, not only don't hire the Rolodex, but you don't really need to have somebody in your industry. You can hire somebody that is not in your industry and teach them your industry. Learning sales skills and hiring good salespeople is more important than trying to find a bad salesperson that worked for your competitor. Because a bad salesperson is a bad salesperson, right? And if they're willing to leave that job that they're at, that competitor, and come to you, well, then you got to question, well, what's wrong? What's going wrong with this person, right? Why are they leaving this great competitor that I worry about on a regular basis, and you want to leave there? Now, sure, you could say, I'm going to give them more money and whatever. That's always the reason. But the reality is it's easier to teach somebody an industry than it is to teach them how to sell. Most salespeople that have been doing it for 10 or 15 years will tell you that they weren't really good at sales that first 5 years. They thought they were. They thought they were really, really good in sales for the first 5 years. But what they found out was they were better in their 6th year. And then they found out they were better in their 10th year. And then they found out that it was easy by the time you got to 15 years. It's easy to have a conversation with a CFO. It's easier to have a conversation with the VP of a big department after you've done 4 or 5 or 100 of those. So hire really good salespeople and teach them your industry. You'll find out that your industry, you can kind of consolidate and teach somebody in 30 to 60 to 90 days, typically. Outside, maybe 6 months.
Yeah. I would want to make sure that I set you up for success on this one, Dave, because when you hear somebody say, but my industry's different, but our company's different, or we're complex, or we're some superlative that gives them the hall pass on hiring well. And it's typically pointing back to not that. It's typically more aligned to, hey, we don't have a defined sales process, or we don't have a defined ICP, or we don't have something about the way we are organized, i.e. culture, is broken. And if they're having problems hiring, if we'll focus on fixing that cultural breakage, we'll actually shake the trajectory of this entire business. We'll move them from flat, somebody says they're plateaued, to up and to the right.
Yeah. I hired a salesperson. It was probably, now that I think about it, it's at least 20 years ago. And she knew nothing about the industry we were hiring in. She was worried about it. She absolutely was. Mm-hmm. But I could tell she was a great salesperson. I had great references. I cross-checked her and back-checked her a lot. And her second year, she was employee number 3, or salesperson number 3 in the company. And we had 280 salespeople at that company. So it really is just about, just be a good salesperson.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great questions.
Hey, guys. I'm Al Lindeman with the Novel Growth Partners and Ignite Skills Academy. And I have to say, it's been a pleasure to know and work with both you guys for the last several years.
Thank you, Al.
And this is really exciting for you guys in your 200th. So thank you for letting us be here. My question goes back to something you two talked about earlier this afternoon about ideal client profile. I see that is a common problem for companies, is they just randomly go out and hope to find somebody that might be interested in what they sell. But it seems to me it is so much easier when you find the right person that has a need for what you want to sell. So how do you help a company really clarify that ideal client profile?
So I like to give them a couple different exercises depending on where they are and who I am talking to. If I'm talking to a salesperson, I got to be a little bit more careful. If I'm talking to the owner of the company, the leader of the company, I can be a little bit more direct. I usually start with a quick exercise and I say, give me your most friendly 10 customers. Give me a list of not your biggest, your most friendly, the ones that get you, the ones that when you sold to them, it was like magic, right? Like they immediately knew that they were going to buy, you immediately knew they were going to buy, and you really feel good about everything they've done. They get your product. They use the majority of the features of your product if you have a lot of features in whatever you do. So I usually say, find 10 of them, and let's talk about them, and let's figure out what's the same about them. Somewhere in that 10 is the description of your ICP, because those were the people that they heard what you had to say, they saw it, and they were like, where have you been all my life? And when they bought it, they used it and they were successful. And they want to buy more, they're great references, all the rest. So your most friendly customers. Now, I really want to say it's not your 10 biggest customers, because you might have to work really hard at some of your biggest customers because who they are. So most friendly, the ones who get it, the ones who are your avid fans, the ones that you would invite to be on your customer steering group if you had a customer steering group to your company, those tend to be the easiest ones to figure it out. That's the first place I start. Kevin, I think you have some other ways of getting it done as well.
I do, and I don't say friendliest. It's interesting you use. I use a different term. I say, tell me about your favorite customer to work with. Again, not revenue, not profit, but I get somebody to say, tell me the story about how y'all met. Tell me the story about the first time they bought from you. Tell me the story about when y'all had a problem and how you solved it. Because what we end up with is not only a demographic, but we end up with a psychographic and buying signals, and then we find these leading indicators of how to find more of them. So I also start to chart that path towards how do we find the next 10? And I do that 4 times as opposed to 10. I tend to work with smaller customers that have a small customer set. So just by and large, they don't have hundreds of customers to pick from. So often the exercise for me is really around telling stories. Because if I can get them to tell stories, I record everything, right? And if you can pull it out in their words and use their words, back to AI and tools and all the things that we do is in an AI-enabled sales environment, do these things. Like if you want to win games, do winning games kind of stuff. This is winning games kind of stuff where you're using all available tools, someone else's stories, because facts tell and stories sell. Use their stories, and this is going to sound bad, but weaponize that story to help attract more companies. Like sales is often referred to as a battle, and the battle's outside your offices. You shouldn't have infighting in your offices. But finding that ICP gets a shared language, that shared vernacular, that common bond that helps us recognize when we have come across our ideal customer. I mean, that's that magic, that touchstone moment where we can say, golly, Pete, if I can find that person in this demographic, in this pain or goal or whatever buying signals and the psychographics of, golly, they're just nice people to work with. They come out of this discipline. Like, I really like working with engineers because they can tell you exactly what they're feeling. Wait, you're an engineer.
I'm guilty on that. So. And you can also do the opposite, right? You can say, tell me about your hardest customers, the ones that you never were able to make happy. They were frustrated. They turned your product off. They didn't renew if it was a subscription type of a product. Those types of companies tend to be the ones you want to avoid. So you can kind of work on your ICP by figuring out who don't I like, who are hard to sell to. The sales cycle's longer, it's more complex, and I didn't make any more money on those companies, even though I worked harder on those companies. So you can do a little bit of opposite. Don't go after the opposites, go after the ones that are all alike, the ones you do really well in. And that's a great place to start. But the key thing is then to boil that down to, I like to say 2 or 3 sentences, but definitely not more than 100 words, right? It shouldn't take a long time for you to explain what you do and what its value is to your customers. So I think that's the best place to start.
Yeah.
One more quick question.
Please.
From an ideal client standpoint, I have seen customer or clients of mine who define their ideal client as who they want to sell to, more so than who needs what they sell. Which, does it make a difference, or which would be better? People who need you or people you want to sell to?
2 things. When you sell to the people that you think need to buy your stuff, you're racing towards a price war. You're commoditizing yourself.
You're also, when you're racing towards people that you think should buy, you're talking. You're not listening. And if we go back to that curiosity thing that I was talking about before, so it is so much easier to sell to somebody who wants to buy, right? And you definitely want to get into, well, what is keeping up at night? Never ask that question. That's the worst question.
Please don't ask that question.
What is bothering you? What's the problem? What are you trying to solve? What goals aren't you achieving? So Kevin's heard me talk about this many times in the last 200 episodes. I don't like to talk about pain. I like to talk about missed goals, because missed goals tend to get funded. So pain is a nag, right? My knee hurts today. That doesn't mean I'm going to get a new knee surgery, right? So pain can be just a nag that most companies will just tolerate. They don't care what their employees are in pain with. That's your job. Just go do it, right? That's what the managers will say. But when the president says, we're going to reduce customer complaints by 40% in this next year, you can guarantee that somehow things are going to change to make that happen, right? So when the president of the company says, we're going to do something big, we're going to increase customer retention, reduce complaints, whatever, then they're going to spend money, and he or she is going to approve that purchase, that change in the organization, and that is very important. So it's always easier to sell to somebody where the president said, we are going to achieve this year. And now the entire company kind of lines up on it, because it's very rare for the president not to put a goal out and doesn't happen, right? So think of, Kennedy said, we're going to the moon in 10 years. Well, we did it, right? It was painful, it was hard, it wasn't easy, but we did it because we all line up. It happens in every company all the time. What the president says, what the owner says, the CEO, whatever the leader is, we're going to accomplish this in the next 12 months, then you can bet they're going to spend some money on that.
Yeah. Al, there's one more piece of this, and Sean, this is some of my favorite work here, where we get to start connecting dots. And Al, to your point about, what about the ICP? What do you do with that? Once you've defined it, then you can use it. Every salesperson under the sun can take an ICP and a persona and lean in to their pipeline. Anybody in this room, in the listening audience, in the world with a pipeline has got some garbage in it. And garbage is defined as stuff that is non-ICP. is where you're trying to form fit, bend and do, the calisthenics, gymnastics to get into the deal box that you shouldn't be in. This is the moment where you say, you take again, one of my favorite phrases, an intellectually honest approach, an intellectually honest approach to your deal and say, does this deal make sense? If I win this, am I really going to benefit from that? Or is this just going to be another W and I'm going to have to really wrestle with it until the service delivery is done? And so Al, I love your question about ICP and defining it because it opens doors for additional follow-on action to clean up or out pipeline. And it also helps you figure out in their terms, their value-based statements, how well you fit as a supplier. Have you earned the right to win that deal?
And to go back to Dave's question earlier about salespeople and new salespeople and bringing them in, if you can define your ICP and your buyer personas within that ICP, then you can hire a salesperson and say, just go find these kind of companies and go find these roles in those companies, and we'll help you get the rest of it done.
It's easy from there, doesn't it?
It does. It's amazing how hard sales is compared to how easy it is to describe.
Absolutely. You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
Hello, Mary Tutton with Impact Talent Strategies. And thank you so much for the practical nature of the advice that you all have given over these 200 episodes. I want to go back to one of the things that Kevin mentioned earlier about the responsibility that organizations have in setting their sales teams up for success. And so if you could really identify one leadership capability that all sales managers should have, what would make the biggest impact on success for their teams?
The biggest impact a sales leader can have on a team is consistency. If you can find somebody who is consistent in how they lead, act, measure, manage, they're the same person on Monday morning, Friday afternoon, beginning of the quarter, end of the quarter, that kind of consistency is probably the one character trait I would want to make sure they have. One of the skills I would want a sales leader to have is, Sean, I'm an analysis guy. I'm a
spreadsheets.
I dig spreadsheets. Everything deserves a spreadsheet. I want them to have some capability, not skills. They don't have to come with the skills. A new sales leader may not have the hard skills, but if they've got the capability to learn analytics and use them to make decisions is a key skill that I think every sales leader should have. Because too often we go and show up and say, what's your biggest deal? What do you need? Why haven't you got it done yet? Is the date right? Do you have the CFO? Do you have the controller? Do you have the right sign off? It's detail around the things that are kind of vanity metrics. And that's how I kind of target a sales leader who is asking the wrong questions. If they're only asking about coverage or only asking about, what you've got in your pipeline this quarter, this month, this time period, that's part of the equation. You need to know that, but if that's all you ask, you don't get to the next stage of what do you think is holding back this decision maker? Why do you think this person is your champion versus a coach? What do you think the decision process is? Where have you shown evidence of finding out analytics of the deal, back to MedPick or BANT or SPICed or any of the acronym-driven qualification and checklist methodologies? If we're not doing that heavy lifting as a leader, we're doing the team a disservice. Because as a sales leader, we have to take that information, that insight, and typically report up. CEO, board, other stakeholders, other divisions. There's something about the work we're doing that impacts other teams. And that's really important to know because we are responsible as sellers and sales leaders for the revenue of the company. Heavy's the head who wears the crown. So that would be my take. Yours?
Yeah. I like to make this analogy, and Kevin's heard me talk about this a lot on the podcast. In no time ever did the basketball coach for any NCAA basketball game ever call timeout right after the foul, yell at the ref, or go to the ref. They probably did all those things, but go to the ref and then say, that player that's going to be shooting that free throw, he's a lousy shot. I'm going to substitute him out. I am going to go out on the floor and I'm going to take that shot. I'm going to do the free throws. I'm going to take my jacket off, put it down, and I'm going to walk out there. Yeah, I've got hard shoes on, but it's okay. I won't scratch up your floor, but I'm going to go do that shot. That never, ever, ever happens. It can't happen. It's against the rules, but it never happens. And what sales leaders that, especially when you first start being a sales leader, is you forget that you are now sitting on the bench. And your job of doing things is on the practice floor, not on the game floor. Sure, you can see that this guy can't dribble right, or you can see this guy is going to fall for that fake or whatever. And you can give that coaching in the huddle, yelling it from the sidelines, whatever. However, your ability to influence your players and make them better and make that kid on the floor hit that free throw is because you made that kid on the floor hit that free throw 100 times. And you know that he is going to make that shot because you taught him how to do it well. So if you are any coach, but a sales coach especially, your job is when there's no customer around and you are make them do it. And as Kevin would say, and he said it many times, practice does not make perfect. Practice makes easy. Perfect practice makes perfect, but we don't do that. But we have to practice to make it easy so that then it becomes just casual and honest and it isn't a problem. So if you're a wannabe sales leader and you want to be successful, figure out how to be successful when the customer's not there.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Great question. I don't think I've been asked that before.
That was a good question.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Hello, gentlemen. Trisha Kasner with Panoptica. Just want to thank you both for allowing me to be a part of your big day, 200th episode. And also, I just want to let you know that you've both inspired me maybe to start a podcast of my own, but I'm not so sure that one average height female talking numbers will catch on. So maybe I'll revisit that. But on to my real question. So with my clients, whether they have a salesperson or not yet, they often ask me, is my commission structure incentivizing the right things? And so I'm usually reviewing kind of the comp structure in tandem with the strategic goals of the organization. I'm just curious, what have you guys seen, throughout your careers working with your clients? How do you best advise clients when they have that issue?
You ready?
I
Go
mean,
ahead.
we can both go long on this one. This is probably the number one question that every owner of any business should ask any advisor, sales or no. How you pay people and what you pay them for matters. And I love that your approach is specifically the comp plan alignment to strategies. And before I jump up on that soapbox, I'm going to have to take a breath so you could talk because it's one of my favorites.
So salespeople don't like complicated spreadsheets, right? Except for Kevin. Kevin likes complicated spreadsheets. But
And me.
yeah. So I sometimes think he's an accountant. It's okay. So I usually say, look, if the salesperson closes the deal on 3:00 in the afternoon, by the time they get home that afternoon, in their head, they should be able to figure out how much they're going to get paid approximately for that deal. It shouldn't be hard. It shouldn't be a mystery. They shouldn't need a spreadsheet to figure it out. They should be able to say, I'm so far into my year, so I'm at 60% of my number, therefore I'm at this rate, and this is how much I should be able to get paid, right? Mm-hmm. And if it's on a profit basis, then he should have some idea of how profitable that thing is that he just did. Or if it's on a gross margin basis, then the same thing. But first start off being simple so that they can do it in their head, even if they're bad at math, even in the kids that didn't even want to talk to an accountant, let alone be an accountant. Can they do it in their head? Because that's what we have to start with. That's the first thing to make sure that it's going to be motivating.
I think that we've talked about this a lot, especially offline, because Sean and I, we deal with building these comp plans a lot. If you as a CFO will say this should be a plan based on 5th grade math, that should be the high water mark because it needs to be simple. It's head math, back of the napkin kind of stuff. And for every owner out there who's wrestling with what should my comp plan be, there's a spectrum. So think about the spectrum of the type of business they're in. And that spectrum really spans from, hey, this is something I'm going to sell over and over and over again. Like I said, got to sell it the first time, but then it's a program. They're going to buy it every week because they need it refillable for manufacturing or whatever. Versus I'm going to sell this once and it's going to be 10 years before this sale comes back up, right? So how difficult are those relationships? So then you've got a base plus incentive plan. And if it's a sell it over and over and over again, and it's probably going to be a commodity market, I mean, you've just got this, the base is really the driver here. Because once you sell it once, you own the business. And it's an annuity type business. So my favorite plans, and we should probably do this, what our favorite plans are. My favorite plans are about 50% base and 50% incentive with escalators. Because if somebody does a really good job and really, really performs well, they should be rewarded for that. And so with a 50% base, they shouldn't starve. You shouldn't have to worry about the spare tire being sold out of the trunk for them to make rent next month. But it should be an agreeable amount where the company benefits and where the salesperson benefits. The only exception to that, I think, is when when the leads are all coming from the company. If marketing is driving all the leads and the salesperson, they often get labeled instead of customer service, they get labeled sales. If the deals are all coming in from marketing, that's where I might draw the line where there's no additional sales effort.
I agree with that. So the customer service person that they're talking to the customer on the phone, they're already a customer, they've already signed the contract, they made the deal, whatever, and they go, you probably should look at our XYZ module that goes on top of that. That is incremental. It shouldn't be a 50-50 plan at that point. I like 50-50 plans as well. And then people go, well, what about 40-60? And I go, well, make the argument why the 40-60 or 60-40 is different than 50-50, right? So it's kind of silly at that point. There are times, though, when pure base makes sense. We just kind of described one, kind of a base plus a bonus kind of situation. There's also times when no base makes sense, and that was when you don't want a team. All you want is just people that go out and they're individual people. They go out and they run around. They don't ever have to work with each other. They don't ever have to give feedback back to the company. And you don't care about your CRM being accurate and having a decent pipeline. If that's your situation, then just don't pay them a base. And they won't do all those things that we just described. They won't help each other. They won't work as a team. They won't give you feedback, and they'll definitely not spend any time on your CRM. So, those are all good things for you. Then go ahead and be a zero base, 100% commission kind of company.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Fun question.
Gentlemen, Chris Spanier, Carbidium Consulting Group. I came into this, first off, again, like everyone, congratulations. What an amazing milestone. And I've been thinking about all the questions I could put you on the spot and ask. And this has just been such a gift to hear you guys, not only today, but all along. But what I wanted to do is maybe turn the back on you. And as the marketing guy, I'm actually curious about your story, specifically when it was that you both knew that this was the career for you. Talk about that early Sean, early Kevin, and how you knew that this was something that you wanted to do each and every day. What was that moment like? How did you go through that process?
You or me?
I was just a wee lad. No, I've got a very, very vivid story. My father was a sales guy, and he was an international salesperson. And so I remember him coming home on, Friday afternoons, whatever. Remember the non-roller style suitcases, 3-piece suits, and he smelled like cold. Like you could smell the cold on his wool suit. And I remember being able to open up his briefcase, his luggage, and there's always a treat in there for me. So I knew from a very young age that if I got in sales, I could live on airplanes, I could have really cool clothes, I would bring home cool gifts, and I have great stories. And I said, that's obviously the career for me. So what did I do? I got into plumbing sales. Yeah, no planes, no trains. No, I knew from a very young age that I wanted to sell. I really got the opportunity when I was probably 14 or 15 to go ride along with him. So he had the U.S. market for some products. So I got to actually go on sales calls with him. He took me all over in the summer, and I just got to meet his customers. And I realized that, hey, these are people that he's helping with his solutions and products. And I just knew that I wanted to do that. And then kind of the natural coach came out in me of wanting to coach, youth sports teams to people. And it just kind of blended together that sales and sales consulting and sales coaching was really my career path and my calling. Because at the end of the day, I want to make a difference at the boardroom table and a difference at the dinner table.
So my father was also in sales. So you would have thought that I wanted to be a salesperson my entire life, but I didn't. But I knew that I liked salespeople. So that was kind of the one big thing. A lot of people that are young don't want to go into sales because they have an icky feeling about sales, right? So I never had that. It paid for my house. It paid for my clothes, all my food when I was growing up. So, I mean, sales was a good thing. And so I always had a deep respect of sales. I was pretty good in math and physics when I was in high school. And so my counselors all said, well, that means you should be an engineer. And I said, how do you spell that? Engineer? What is that? All right. This is obviously before the internet, before we have really good computers. In fact, we didn't have computers back then. And so I really didn't know what an engineer did every day of its life. And I went ahead and went to engineering school anyway. So halfway through engineering school, though, I was in a relatively depressed economy area of the country, and my father convinced me to run a fruit and vegetable stand for the summer, and that's how I was going to make money. I literally had people picking blueberries and strawberries out of the field behind the store, coming up. I was washing them, putting them in a bag or a box, and selling them to people. And I did really, really well doing that. And the farmer that I leased that store from, he said, well, now I know how to run a business. I'm going to go ahead and not lease it back to you next year. So I had to find a new job after that. But I realized that what I really enjoyed was solving business problems. But here I was an engineer, and I wasn't going to go any longer in school. I was going to finish my engineering degree because I hated school and I wanted to be done with it. So I made the decision that I was going to do something else. And when I went back to college, so that would have been my sophomore and junior year. When I went back to college that year, I started noticing everybody at homecoming. And the people at homecoming that had sales jobs, they were having fun in their jobs. They were enjoying things. They knew the latest thing that was going on in their industry. They talked about their customers, and sure, everybody complained about their boss. That was kind of a given. When I talked to the engineers that came back, they hated their jobs. They loved their life. They, steady income, all the other good things about being an engineer, but they didn't really love their job. They loved everything around their job, but not necessarily their job itself. And I realized that if I was going to work for all my life, that I'd probably rather have fun and be enthused and be excited about what was going on and know about the latest stuff. And so the business part of it, plus the ability to solve problems, plus the ability to make a little bit more money being in sales, I went sales. So I graduated from college, and the last time I was an engineer was when I stepped off stage with my diploma.
Thanks, guys. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate you, Chris.
I think we probably have time for maybe one more question, if anybody else has a question.
Good.
Hey guys, congratulations. I'm Rachel Blackburn with Ledger Logics, and I don't think any sales conversation would be complete without asking, within a business-to-business style sale, about how many touches do you think it should take to get from initial knowing about or deciding that someone's a lead to an actual first client visit?
9 million.
As many
9 million. I like it. I feel really encouraged right now. That's good stuff.
So it depends. Typical sales answer, it depends. I think it's really important to know less about the number of touches, because it is multiple, but know less about the counts of touches and know more about what is the content of the touch. Is it a outreach cold? Is it a referral? Is it a following up message? I mean, really getting into the weeds of what are the 6 to 26 words I'm using in that touch to activate I'm called a new to me client, a new relationship. But then I think about, Kevin, when you're thinking about relationships, how did we build friends? I moved to a new city in my early 40s. everybody my age had enough friends. So when I think about the people who just, by the way, are also sitting in this audience now, people that I'm counting as friends and colleagues, I mean, a lot of it was just introductions, referrals, a shared interest, and the touches actually get higher and the relationship gets wider and broader. And thinking through how those relationships evolve, it's less about to your question, it's less about the number of touches and more about the content of the touch. So I would say for any new seller out there, for anyone in B2B sales, let's think about the value in the way our prospects measure it. And let's focus on the content of those touches and then find ways to repeat those touches. But broadly speaking, it's more than one. It's at least 10. We have to pierce the veil of trust.
I agree 100%. I'm going to go back to an earlier question from today. One of my favorite books, Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. So sales is about maybe not making friends, but definitely developing trust, right? And it doesn't come overnight for anybody. Nobody walks in and says, trust me, it's going to work. It just doesn't work. That's not how things happen, right? So it takes time to develop trust. Also, you said the first sales call to, it's time to do it or move forward, and they know it's time to move forward as well. There's the second aspect of, in most B2B sales, the average right now is 7 decision makers for every single transaction that happens. So a big mistake that a lot of young salespeople make is they don't know enough people. They are single-threaded at the customer. They only know one person or 2 people. Those are the 2 people that come to all the meetings. But what they don't understand is there's another 4 or 5 people that are being influenced, that have a part of that decision process. Maybe they're talking to other salespeople. So you really don't know if it's a great opportunity until you've at least touched half of those people. So you need to keep on building that trust sideways or horizontally in the organization, so that you have 3 people, 4 people, 5 people in the company, depending on how big it is, especially if it's a deal that is a 20% of your quota kind of a deal. So I talk about this on the podcast a lot. What's a 5% quota deal and what's a 20% quota deal? So 20% of your annual quota, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of income for you as a salesperson. So don't you think you should know, like, everybody and the brother and the janitor and the person down the hall before you actually say that, yeah, I know enough people, I can actually get this deal closed. So having lots of conversations sideways meaning same title, same place in the organization, but I'm still going to get to know them. I'm going to go to other departments in the company. Those are kind of the challenges that I find that salespeople say, oh yeah, this is a great opportunity. We're going to close this deal. How many people do you know? Oh, I met Joe. Joe's going to take care of me. And Joe might. I mean, it's not uncommon for it to happen just once. But Joe wasn't the only decision maker. And you just put your whole income at risk because Joe may not know everything about what's going on in the company. So go meet Harry and Sally and Sue as well.
Yeah. Tactically, if you're wanting to take that even further, there's a tool called the 9-square exercise, or a 3x3 matrix, which is legitimately down the left-hand column. It's the role, right? Are they, from an accounting standpoint, is it the CFO, the controller, or is it the accounting clerk? And then across the top, maybe it's accounting, finance, or accounting and finance, and then quality and product development and sales and other executives, right? Building out and finding the holes in your relationships at a prospect or client is probably one of the more valuable, am I going to win this deal exercises than anything. Just, do you know enough people to earn the right to win?
Yeah. And the killer is when you look at that 3x3, the 5x5, if it's a really, really big deal, when you look at that, you realize that I have to make a lot of sales calls in order to make this a win, right? So having a good relationship is one thing, but to make sure you have a win, you literally got to cover half those people.
Yep.
And if you don't cover half, then you got to worry about what if everybody you don't know teams up against you because your competitor knows the other half.
Which is closer to the 9 million touches than the 7 touches. Because you got a cast of characters that's 27
definitely
people.
$1 million per block. Good stuff.
Exactly.
Thanks for weighing in. Thank you.
Thank you. So this has been great. I've really enjoyed this, and thank you very much to our audience. So I'm going to give a round of applause to our audience. Thank you very much for all of your help and helping us do this. But this has been a lot of fun. I can't wait to do 300, and we can do this again. But maybe we'll do it before that. But
yeah, and one thing I want people to take away from today is that this is fun for us. We get a lot of value out of this, not just talking about our craft, but frankly, we're learning from each other. I mean, I have no hair. Sean has gray hair. I mean, we got a lot of experience under our belt, so sharing this knowledge is useful. So for all of you out there in listener land, for all of you in the audience, thank you, and thank you. And we want to hear from you. So if there's other questions in this episode, please drop it in the comments.
Yeah, and we'd be remiss if we didn't say the other thing that Kevin and I did together because of Two Tall Guys Talking Sales, where we talk one way and we hardly ever hear anything back. We actually started a new group called B2B Sales Lab, where it's a community and people can come together and they can ask each other questions. They can say, gee, should I buy this thing or that thing? How does this work? I don't know how to solve this problem. I'm trying to break into this type of account. Mm-hmm. Whatever the question may be, we'll answer the question if we see it first, but also the other community members will give their opinions and they'll help out. So B2B Sales Lab is a great thing that we've done, primarily because we got tired of talking one direction and we really wanted people to come back and have a community and help each other and help us.
The power of community.
Iron sharpen iron.
There you go. Well, Sean, until next week, happy selling.
Happy selling.
What a terrific way to celebrate 200 episodes. This conversation delivered the kind of practical sales insight you can actually put to work. I want to remind you that if you want to watch the video version of this episode, go to the YouTube link in the show notes. One idea that especially stood out was Sean and Kevin's discussion about using AI and automation to create more selling time. Because the real objective is not to become better at using technology. It is to eliminate research, administrative work, and repetitive tasks that keep salespeople away from customers. Take a look at prospecting, active selling, and customer retention. Identify the single task in each area consuming the most time, and ask whether AI, workflow automation, or another tool can get that work off your plate. Just one additional quality sales conversation each day can dramatically change the economics of a salesperson's year. The other action I would take immediately is Sean and Kevin's ideal client profile exercise. Identify your friendliest or favorite customers, determine what they have in common, and reduce those patterns to a clear ICP your entire team can actually use. Do that today, before tomorrow's meetings, emails, and emergencies take over, because a sharper ICP can improve everything from prospecting and qualification to messaging, hiring, and deciding which opportunities deserve your time. If you ever need help with sales, sales management, or simply growing your company, reach out to Sean or Kevin. You'll find their contact information in the show notes. And if you want an ongoing place to get answers, exchange ideas, and access resources that can help you make quota, join the B2B Sales Lab, where salespeople and sales leaders work together to help one another succeed. The link is also waiting for you in the show notes. Be sure to subscribe to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales on your favorite podcast player and join Sean and Kevin again next Tuesday when a new episode drops at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. Happy selling!